Hey, good evening and welcome to The Price of Fame. That is The Price of Fame. My name is Lunga Tshuka. I'll be your host, the Energizer Funny. And wow. So for those of you who are viewing the show for the very first time and don't really understand what The Price of Fame is, this is basically, on this show, we focus on the journey of the people that we admire, the people that we admire in specific industries, people that we consider to be famous, not necessarily your uncle, not someone who's like famous in the family because he plays amazing darts or because he makes the best roti. We're not looking for that kind of famous people, that's internal, that would just be weird. So I'm looking at, I've made a list of the people that I admire, that I grew up watching, that has an impact on the way I see things, whether it be comedy, music, or whatever, but they are the best and they are the heavy hitters in the industry, and I consider them to be famous. And I want to learn about their journey because the essence of the character of their growth is in the journey. The journey is the most important thing that I consider to be about the whole thing, because like you've heard that saying before, everyone sees the glory, but no one really knows the story. So let's get into that story, see what we can learn from it, and see how this beautiful soul can inspire us. This man, ladies and gentlemen, so I know you guys have been in my DMs, and you've been telling me, Lunga, when are you gonna, I'm just joking. There's been no one in my DMs. I just wanted to say that, Anyways, moving on. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's go crazy with the likes and the hearts and everything. And let's welcome our guest tonight. He is none other than the legend, Barry Hilton! Wow.
Fantastic, Lunga. You should be one of those boxing commentators. And in the right corner, you got
hey, yes, with weighing in 305, 50 punchlines, Barry Hilton.
That's very funny.
Let's get ready to rumble. Okay, I'm getting carried away.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a legend right here. We're looking at a legend. I'm so honored.
So is Toyota.
Sorry?
So is Toyota.
I'm so honored to have Mr. Barry Hilton on the show tonight. I remember you making me laugh since I was a kid, with the whole, I don't know what the name of the show, what was the name of that morning show that you did?
Catch Your Wake Up.
Catch Your Wake Up. So I was too young to understand everything, but I just knew that this man is funny. Whenever he comes on, it's time to laugh, and he was like the funny part of the show. Furthermore than that, you jump a couple of years forward. Well, I'm just saying from my perspective, where I seen you, and then I saw you on the Savannah ads, and I was like, wow, this man is still killing it. And I looked at your bio and I'm just like blown away. You're like a superstar of comedy. I think you've covered everything. You've done movies, you've done international tours, you've done local tours. You have your own spot where you run comedy. I don't know, what haven't you done in comedy? What haven't you experienced yet in comedy to be like, yeah, that's something I still want to do, you know? And what's crazy about it is like you haven't hung up your boots yet. You're still going strong. You're still doing your thing,
Yeah.
you know? And you're a powerhouse. You are a powerhouse in comedy. And like you could hear
Let me just
one of
stop
the
and
people.
tell the people here that I'm not paying you for this.
Not at all. You don't have to. You don't have to. I mean, your level and your energy and your light. I mean, I had the honor of like spending some personal time with you. You know, I did a gig with Barry. I don't know, a couple of years back, could be 3 or 4 years, and I got some personal time to spend with Barry and get to know him on a personal level. And he welcomed us into his home. And I don't want to speak. I'm not going to speak out of your home, but I just want to speak about something that really stood out for me. I saw a poster, a huge poster, and it was a one-man show that you did. And it was 1987.
82.
That's the year. Sorry?
82.
1982.
The one on my wall.
Before I was born.
Before you were born.
That's before I was born.
That's when I
Do you know
started.
how long people actually take polishing their craft before they decide, okay, I'm going to do a one-man show? I mean, that's before I was born.
There's
Like,
a little
what was
bit
the
different
comedy
there,
back
Lunga.
then?
It was
Yeah.
it was slightly different there. You had to do. It was more cabaret and things like that. You had to do 45 minutes. But
Okay.
when I
Wow.
started, I was 26 when I turned pro. It was actually 1983 when I really started turning pro, and I could do 4 hours. So that was a
Wow.
cool. Yeah. So that was, but it was
And
more
what was the
jokes in those
standard
days.
that was
Pardon?
the standard back then? Was that the standard back then? Or were
No,
you just
basically the standard was 40 minutes or 30 minutes. I worked in strip clubs, and I was the compere because it was the only way I could get work, you know. And I had to
Yeah.
pretend I was from England. True
Wow.
story, quick. No, true. I couldn't get a job in South Africa because the program called Biltong and Potros had just finished. So if I wasn't one
Yeah.
of those guys, they wouldn't believe me. So I went into an agent's office in Sea Point and I spoke like this, like I just got off the boat from Liverpool. And the guy said, "What do you do?" He said, "What do you think I do? I'm a comedian. I'm from Liverpool." So he said to me, "Can you tell me a joke?" I said, "No problem." And I told him the carcass joke I had at the time. I said to him, "Bloke goes into an optician. Optician said, 'You need glasses.' How do you know?" "I could tell when you walk through the window." You see, so they gave me the job. So I went to this gig,
Oh,
and you had to do 15 minutes in between the strippers, if you will, 10 shows a week. But every time
yeah.
they came in, I was doing new stuff because I thought that's what you have to do. I didn't realize a lot of the other comics were just
Oh,
doing their 15 minutes. So I just got on stage and
yeah.
I just banged it. And then and this is a true story how it really worked for me. They called me into the office and the guy said to me, he wants to talk to me. And I'm still talking Liverpool, you know. And I'm thinking, all right, there, no, I'm coming over. So he said, we want to get you on, but we've heard a whisper. And I thought, oh my God, I'm dead. The Oaks have found out I'm South African. I'm going to die. And I said to him,
Yeah.
"What's the whisper?" "Because in Liverpool, whispers are chocolates." And he went, "Oh, fair funny." He said, "We heard a whisper that you can do a very, very good South African accent." So I said, "Serious, Madre? You should have told me that before." And he said, "I can't believe you." And that's how I started, pretending I was from the UK. And then also,
Wow.
I've never cursed on stage. I don't know if you've seen me. I don't curse. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
something I did. A guy called Johnny Noble helped me right in the very, very beginning. A guy called Johnny Noble, and I asked him for help, and he was the only guy out of all the comics in South Africa that I had approached, which was all of them that I saw on television. He was the only guy. I said, "Yeah, I'll come and help you." So he got me a job, and I was terrible. I was absolutely terrible. And this was before we did the Liverpool thing. He said to me, "That was rubbish," and I went, "Oh, does it mean I can't do it?" He says, "No, no, no." He says, "You've got an abundance of talent." Now, please don't think I'm being arrogant here. Okay, but he said that to me. He said, "You have an
No.
abundance of talent and you clearly have a lot of material. The only thing you need is experience. So if you come with me, I will show you how." And he taught me. He taught He said that like if
Oops.
you keep it clean, you will always be in the scene. And I've stuck to that, you know. If you keep it clean, you'll be always in the scene. So I thank Johnny Noble for that every flippin' day. And the story behind that, it's a Johnny Noble was a famous comedian in South Africa, and he would
Yeah.
go on and bring me along, and then say to the people, okay, once in a while, you have the fortunate of finding somebody with talent, and it's your duty, if you find somebody with talent, to help that talent grow, which is that's how life should be anyway, you know.
Yes,
So
that's true.
he would then say to these guys, if you think I'm funny, when this kid gets on stage, you're going to wet your pants. And this is really, and he helped. So when I got on stage, I was almost like on a magic carpet ride. I just went on bang and I hammered these guys. And we had these signals. Johnny would stand at the back of the club and he would do this if I wasn't talking loud enough. He would do this if I needed to go. He would do this if I was talking too fast, that if I was talking too slow. And the signal for me to get off, because when you're young, you've been there, you don't really know the time to get off, because you
I
always want to get
also
that
know
one
that
more
actually.
in. You want to get that extra one in. So yeah. So Johnny Noble would do this with a glass of whiskey like this. And he'd drink the whiskey, and that was my cue. And he said to me, when I lift that glass off, you finish on that joke. Finish, that's it. And that's exactly what I did. So I did it for a
Wow.
long time. And he gave me, so he actually got me we sort of devised the Liverpool thing, and
Yeah.
got me into the gigs. So it's been a long time, and I spent the first 5 years of my life, I like the first 3 years, I was just doing these strip clubs. And then I got
Wow.
a famous agent in South Africa at the time was Josie Brody.
Yes.
I was working in Joburg. There was another guy called Brian Mulder that helped me. He realized what I have, you know.
Yeah.
And he invited Josie Brody, and she was involved with Sun International hugely. She was an agent for the big stars that used to come out there. And
Yeah.
he organized her to come and see me. And I'll never, it's like, you know, you get special moments in your life that you never forget. I was on stage, place was packed. She walked in, took a sip of drink, talked to another two people that are there, and she turned around and walked out. That's what she did. I thought, I'm dead. And the next morning, she phoned me up. She said to me, come to my office. I was thinking, what the hell's going on here? She said,
Yeah.
your plans have changed. You're going to the Wild Coast Sun. I've put you in a show there called Fun and Games. It was a South African-based show, and they put me in as a Liverpool comedian, if you will, you know. So
How
that's
old
how
were
I
you this
started.
time?
And from there, pardon?
How old were you this time?
I was 28. 28,
Okay.
20, just turned 29. And then they said to me, I was working in Swaziland. I started working in the big casinos for
Wow.
Josie. And I
Yes.
was in Swaziland, and I'd been in Swaziland for, I think it was 1 week of a 2 week, used to do 2 weeks in those days to do cabaret every night, you know.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call from her, and I got a phone call from the office. Lance Rothschild said to me, you need to come down to my office now. And I thought, he was the GM, you know. I thought, shit, what's
Yes.
going on, you know? So I go down there, and he said to me, listen, I'm afraid we're cancelling your contract. And I said, but why? What have I done wrong, you know? He said, no, you're going to the extravaganza in Sun City. And there was a huge, they said these big Hollywood type shows, you know. And
Yeah.
that's where
Yeah.
they sent me. They sent me to the extravaganza for, I'm just trying to think now. They sent me to the extravaganza for a week just to try it out. And I stayed
Yeah.
for the whole season. 17 weeks I was there. 8 months I
Wow.
was there, in fact. Eight months. We were there 8 months. That's right. So, and then from there, it just grew and grew and grew. And I just never gave up because, you know, you've been there, and I can tell you as a comic, I watched you. You're very funny. You think you get off stage, you think, you know, I've done a killer show. Tomorrow, I'm going to be flooded with calls. That doesn't
Yeah.
happen, you know?
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
think that the secret of creating your dream, you have to say, okay, let me have another go, and another
Mhm.
go, and another go, and another go. I counted
Completely.
out, actually, I was talking to Sandy today. I've done north of 5,000 shows.
Wow.
in my career. Yeah. And I still, when I get on stage, it's still like the first time for me. Do you remember when you guys came to when we had that gig and we
Yes.
smashed it that night? Do you remember everybody? I was so nervous because I had these young and upcoming comics, and I said to Sandy, "How am I going to do this?" She said to me, "Oh, Betty, don't be silly." Sandy is my wife, by the way. If you you know Sandy, and you know,
Yes. Yes.
so and she used to say to me, "Don't be silly, Barry. You funny. These guys are very funny, but you Barry Hilton, you know." And I said, "Oh, what happens if they're funnier than me?" You can ask her when you see her. I was scared that you guys were going to be better than me, and it's funny when you realize it afterwards. You were better in X, I was better in Y, but we were
Yes.
comedians working together.
Yes.
Do you remember those gigs? For the people who didn't come there,
Yes.
we used to have this thing once a month on a Sunday in Amonis, and we would squeeze in about 120 people. And then I would go on. I was the
Yeah.
MC. So remember? Then I was the
Yeah.
MC. Then we had a support. No, we had an open mic, a support, and a headliner. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you were doing
Yes.
the
Yes.
beatboxing, and you were trolling, and you were telling the people that you live in Mitchell's Plain and you can't
Yeah.
speak Xhosa. And I was crying
Yeah.
with laughter, and
It's an
but I was still
amazing
nervous to
show.
go on. I was still nervous to go on. It's the most it's the funniest thing, you know. And I think if you're not nervous and you just go, but it's time to readdress what you're doing, because you need to
Yeah.
be on the edge every time you go on stage. And for
It's
anything you
like
do,
so
anything
amazing.
comedy. Pardon?
Yeah, because I say that's so amazing because like I've been doing emceeing and comedy for like a while now, and I also still get nervous, and people like people that have seen me do my work, you know, they'd be like, "Hey, you're so good and everything." Like they're so surprised to see how nervous I get before I go on stage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think it's something that actually goes away, you know. And hearing from you now, I've done over 5,000 shows, you know, and you still get that nerves before you go. You still like it still bothers you like, is this going to be a good show? Am I going to be good? Am I going to hit the
Yes.
mark? You know, it's going to be a good night. Am I going to give the people what they came for? You know,
Yes.
is it going to be a success? And all of that stuff,
Yeah.
you know, wow, it's amazing to hear that you still get it, you know, at that
Oh,
level.
massive, massive, massive. But a funny thing happened to me uh, about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I'd been invited to do a tour of Australia by this big company in Australia, and I went to Perth first, and I did 2 shows in Perth, like 1,000 people a night, and then I went to
Yeah,
Brisbane. I did a show there, 1,000 people, and then I
yeah,
went to the Sydney Opera House, and 2,200 people. But I
fantastic.
was cucking myself because I'm thinking, these oaks have brought me out here. What happens if I die in my Sydney Opera House? You know, that's like the
Yeah,
holy grail, bro. For me, it was.
yeah,
And it was just,
wow.
I walked on stage and I just whacked it. And before you ask, you say that it wasn't full of South Africans. It was full of comedy lovers who South Africans had shown their Australian friends, hey, you got to watch this guy. And
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
one of the greatest honors I'd ever had, because two separate agencies came after my show, came to me and said, would you like to come and work in Australia? You know, and I thought about it and I thought, no, you know, even with all the crap we've got here, I still love South Africa, and I'm here, dude. You know, that's what it's about. You know, so it's a jewel. But the
yeah.
funniest thing happened, Lunga. While I was almost finished, I did 2.5 hours. My show was 2.5 hours long. It was supposed to be an hour 10, but I just
Oh,
carried on two
hours.
and a half hours. And all I could think of in the last 10 minutes was what we were going to have for a braai when I got home. So I'm telling these guys, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's pork chop. No, we can have a bit of sausage. But that's even, you see, but the people out there don't know that we can do that. Because when
Yeah, yeah,
you're telling a gag about dogs, but as you're telling that gag about dogs, you're thinking about the time you flew to Durban. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So you're always
yeah,
one, maybe
yeah,
two ahead. So you know,
yeah.
so it's a joy. I've had a great time. Look, I've had some really hard times. You know, I've been booed
Yeah.
off stage. I've
Wow.
been threatened.
What?
Oh yeah, I was in England. I got actually the funniest story. I went to the UK when it wasn't very it wasn't a very wise decision to go to the UK in the late 80s as a white South African, because naturally I was a racist. That was the thing. Yeah, and I got a job at Newcastle. I got a job at Newcastle University.
Yeah.
And I got on stage and I said, "Hi, I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa." Silence, but silence. The guy got up, he walked across to me, said, "Here's your money. We don't want racists here." And I was like,
"Wow,
are you serious?" Now that might, some guys will go, that destroyed me, because that wasn't fair. They didn't even give me chance to talk. They just said, "Get up, you're racist." And that was, and I actually got annoyed, because these are intelligent guys, but they were caught up in this crap. And be realistic. The government we had was pathetic. So whatever. So you've got to take those knocks. Every comic out there, every comic, including the huge ones, have died on their ass, and that's the worst feeling in the world. You remember that when you're dying, you're supposed to doing 45 minutes and you're dying and you're thinking, "Please God, can we have an earthquake or something? Just swallow me up now."
Something else,
Why didn't I choose to be a janitor or something like that? It's the weirdest thing. And if you notice, here's the thing I'll tell you, and if there's any young comics out there listening, you get on stage one day and you think that you've had the cuckest show ever, okay? Because it just didn't flow for you. And then your fans and your friends go to you, "Seriously? That was the best show I've ever seen." Has that happened to you? It happens.
Yes.
But you see, and I thought about that, because we are always self-analyzing ourselves. That wasn't good enough, Barry. That was not good enough. So I was trying to do other stuff, throwing in new stuff, and my fans were going like, "Jeez, where do you get this stuff?" So it's not an easy job, but it's a great job, isn't it? It's brilliant, in fact.
True. There's been a time where I've hosted a show and I've done some jokes and everything, but from where I'm standing on stage, I felt like the energy is not it's not hitting. They're not really feeling me, like there's a few giggles, whatever. And I just went home, and then that same night you get like random people be like, "You were so funny tonight and I enjoyed you the most." Like, what? And then you just get shocked, And I always believe like because we're so hard on ourselves, we always aim to set the bar extremely high.
Yeah, so and higher and higher and higher.
Yeah, so even when we don't reach our expectations, we're still good enough.
Actually lift it up,
We don't expect anything, Those who just came openly and be like, I just came to have a good laugh, and then you come with this amazing things. Like you said, you were throwing in so much new things, trying to be like, I'm trying to make it work. But they were so amazed that you could think.
But it's happened to you, Lunga. It's happened to all comics, Yeah. You know what? For a long time, I battled. I really have you won't believe this, but I have a terrible lack of self-belief. Okay, I'm always pounding myself, maybe I'm not good enough. And then Sandy reminds me, "Best, seriously. I did a gig in Carnival City. Was my biggest gig I ever did, by myself. I got 4,200 people to come to see me in one night. By myself, and that was funny. After 2.5 hours, Sandy actually came to the wings and said to me, "Can you get off, please?"
And you were just going. You are just going.
I mean, how can you? 4,000 people. But I walked on. I said, "My cousin." They laughed for 10 minutes. So it's funny. Sorry, it's funny how that things. But it's not so easy. And here's another thing: if there's any young comics listening, understand that the worst place in the world after the gig is your hotel room. That is the worst place. It's like you're being punished. Have you tried that? You've done such a brilliant gig. I got to go to sleep now. And you sit in your hotel room and think, look. And then you start analyzing shit. Maybe I should have done that. Then you end up ordering a toasted bacon and egg.
Yeah, that whole magical space that you just created, the love, the laughter, the energy that you felt, all of that is just gone, and it's just like a sound in your ear, in your head, and you're just like, And you'll be like, yeah. Usually
Well, thank you,
I
Emily.
try that
Emil.
too, and I try to not. I also credit myself a lot, but I also try to just like highlight the good moments, you know. And then I'd be like, I always do that after a gig, so I come home and then I try and highlight the good moments and everything.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
know, but hasn't it been disastrous for this last year? I mean, the
yeah,
Oaks have just been dying on their dying. I mean, I know a few comics that have actually lost their homes and things like that.
yes,
It's been really, really bad, you know. But what
yeah,
can you do? And you know, I tend to use humor to get me through the crappy times. I don't know if I
yes.
told you that I lost my brother, you know, to cancer. It was a horrible thing. But then one day I was on stage and somebody mentioned something and I said, "Yeah, I lost my brother." And everybody went like, "Oh." I said, "No, the Oak's not dead. He's got Alzheimer's. We took him to Checkers. We don't know where he is." But that was an ad lib vibe. And you think, yeah,
Yes,
I'll put that in my show because that is so
yes,
funny. So
exactly.
yeah, it's true. It's funny how you and I bet you sometimes um, you've been. I was I had an operation on my arm. I was suffering from gout. I don't know why, and a big growth on my arm, and I had to go into the hospital and have it done. And I couldn't afford the medical aid, so I discharged myself after one night. Okay, because I had a gig on that night, and I went to this gig. My arm was bandaged
Wow.
all over like that, and I was like, I thought I was going to frick. I was sweating from the you know the drugs and all that shit. And I got on stage and I spoke about this operation I had for half an hour. The Oaks, we had to take a break because the guys were saying, "Please, please, please, I can't breathe anymore, please." And I'm thinking, wow, was that I'm moaning about my operation, you know, but
Yeah.
it's funny, and I still use that routine every now and again. So a lot of people out there, thank you, we tell the truth.
Yes.
Comics
Yes.
tell the truth. We tell it as it is, bro. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then you know you'd be naive to believe that everybody likes you. You'd be
True.
naive to believe that, you know. But if you, my logics now is, if I don't have to ask you to help me pay my mortgage, then up yours. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? But it's difficult to get to a level like that, you know.
Yeah.
But as a comic, I don't know. You doing a podcast now? You check. I've created. First of all, I created that thing that No Gonons Braai, the joke I made, you know, and I do those No Gonons Braai t-shirts.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes. I remember.
I've got a thing now that I've got. It's called Cousin Approved, and I do
Yes.
reviews, product reviews, and that came about. A guy sent me a braai to try. Okay,
Yeah.
so I loved this braai. It was brilliant. It was portable. You could take it here, and I was filming it just for fun. And at the end, I just said, Bon braai, I'll buy that for my cousin. And then I sent this out, the raw footage.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Are you serious? Can you do me one?" I said, "Do you what, bro?" He said, "Can you do me a cousin approved?" That was it. And I
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, sure." So I did it. And now I've created a platform where I'm reviewing product. And I think I'm very fortunate in the fact that nobody can take that from me because it's cousin approved. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? Yeah. So, but it's helped me in this last year tremendously.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
this
it's amazing.
content
Like
created. Remember the album? Emile Leroux says stitches for the price at Santon. I want imported. Remember that? You see that thing we just got there now. I went to
yeah.
do a golf club. I was on a golf club in Randpark Ridge, and it was like a long, thin room. And you know, golf clubs, they spend 300 million rands on the golf club, and they buy the PA system from the Chinese shop down the road. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Sort of cracks like. So
Yeah.
nobody could hear me and nobody could see me. So I stood on a table, and you know, I'm very animated, and I stuck my hand
Yeah.
up, and a fan clapped me and nearly took my finger off. Yes.
Whoa.
So I wrapped my hand in this in a serviette, and I carried
Yeah.
on. And I did like
Okay.
an hour, and I had to change the serviette 4 times. It was blood everywhere. So
Yeah.
Emil just said, so as soon as I finished the gig, I said, "Guys, I've got to go." I went to Santon Clinic. Okay. and I had to pay like ridiculous amount of money because I didn't have medical aid in those days. You have to pay, you know. I had to pay. In fact, I think it was just about the same money I got paid. I had to pay as an entrance. It was many, many, many years ago. So I'm standing there, I'm dripping like this, and the chick's going to me, name. I said, seriously, I'm dying here. Name. Whatever. So anyway, so they take me in, and the nurse said to me, this looks very bad. I'm going to have to give you a local anesthetic. And I remember saying to her, are you serious? $3,000 a night, and I want imported. So she laughed at me. She said, what do you mean imported? I said, this is it's local. Is this a local? She thought I was talking about South Africa, you know, local. So that guy remembered that. I was there that night. Well, he was there that night. It was flipping horrendous, but we managed it. You know, and I've only finished not done a few gigs. Greg Z. Feinberg, comedians like yourself are so important for the mental health of society to say things that most people don't say. Thank you, Greg. I really, really do appreciate that. It's so true, hey. We say stuff that other oaks don't. What does Kevin Hart say the other day? He says stuff that other people wish they could say. They had the braveness to say that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's what it's about, yeah.
I see a huge sense of healing actually with comedy. You know, like you said, we take real life and then we put like a funny spin in it. We make people laugh about these things that you will learn to get over it and not get stuck in your emotions. You know,
absolutely. You know, when my brother died,
and then you bring it across as a joke. You know, and what we should do. We should just laugh it off.
You know, humor is the best medicine. When my brother died, a guy asked me, he was supposed to be a friend of my brother, and then he said to me, how's Alan? I said, I'm sorry, but he died, you know. And the guy said to me, like, all dramatically, like, he cracks like, was it the big C? I said, yes, he drowned in Durban. So, but then you know, the oak said to me, what was he doing in Durban? He was so sick. I said, very seriously, the oak didn't make it, he died. You know, so you gotta have that, because where would we be without humor? Where would we be? You know, I mean, imagine you gotta have a laugh, and you.
Yes.
I'm reading these books. I like these audio books, and I'm reading a lot about these guys that SEAL Team 7 and things like that. That interests me, you know, and they call it the dark comedy of the guys who are in the front line. They talk about death. They talk about this. They talk about that. But it's actually a mechanism to alleviate their worry, because they're thinking, sure, but I'm going into this system, I might get killed there. So the oak says, if I get killed, make sure that my arm goes to my auntie, my leg goes there. So they do that as a release, because, hey, we're going into some serious stuff here now. So it's amazing how comedy is a fix for a lot of things, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we teach people how to have like a lighter perspective on things that they are dealing with. But when we share our stories, you know, we share what we've been through, you know.
Yeah, but hold on a second. That hair shampoo oaks tried to do that, and they got bliksem by the EFF. But have a lighter perspective.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
No, but I'm funny. Did you ever see Joe Mafella?
Like live or
live,
just no, I haven't had the opportunity to see him.
You know, Joe Mafella was stuck in the wrong era. He was persecuted basically because he was a black guy, you know, from the apartheid acts. He couldn't perform and he couldn't do this. But I used to go in the clubs and have a look. I used to watch Joe Mafella regular. And I can't speak Xhosa, but I could understand. And the guy was so funny. He was talking in a language that was foreign to me, but I used to cry with laughter because of the way he presented things, you know. So if anybody out there remembers Joe Mafella, he was one of the greatest comics in South Africa's ever seen. And he said he died in a car crash.
Nice. Yeah. Guy from the Chicken Licken ads. He used to do the Chicken Licken ads.
That's right. It's nice. It's funny, and he was a nice guy too, you know. Nice guy.
Barry, I have a question quickly. So, like, I saw that you did some tours in Hong Kong, you know, and you've did you did some tours in Hong Kong.
Yes.
You did comedy in Hong Kong as well.
Yes.
How was that experience for you? Was it like, was it nerve-wracking or what?
Yes, of
Or did
course, it's nerve-wracking
it
because first of all, you're thinking, what's happening? I went there. The guys only would book American comedians because in the center of Hong Kong where we were, in a place called Soho, first of all, that's for every nation you can think of is in Soho, in Hong Kong. Okay. And the common denominator is English.
Yeah.
So the comedy club, they had nights that they spoke Mandarin and things like that. But then most of the week they would have English comics or American comics.
Yeah.
And through somebody else, the guy called Jamie Gong there, he saw me work, and I was in Hong Kong doing something for some South Africans, and he said, "Okay, come on, I'll give you 2 minutes." So I got on stage, and I ended up doing 35 minutes, and then he brought me back. I've been back there five or six times because then we started expanding. We went to Macau.
Yeah.
Then I went to Singapore. I did Malaysia, Thailand, what. So, but the common denominator is English. But it used to be American comics that would come there. So we broke the mold. And I tried very much. I'm a fan of Chris Forrest. I love his dry humor. Don't tell him, you might get a big head. But nice. I love him. He's a great comic. And I used to say to Jamie in Hong Kong, you got to get Chris, man. He's a nice guy. And he's funny. Man, get him, And I don't know if he contacted him or whatever, but I used to push the South African guys all the time because that's what we should do. Help the Oaks, but help them. Because some of the Americans I watched there were like, okay, very crude. And Australians, I'm not being racist or whatever. I'm just saying, in South Africa, there's a funny thing that you'll know. Because our audiences are relatively small, okay?
Yeah.
We have to be far more creative. Because like in the States, for instance, if you go to the States and you've got a really cool 1 hour set, okay?
Yeah.
There are 50 states. There are 500, I don't know what they call them, counties or 1,000 counties. You could do your 1 hour show for the next 10 years because there's so many people there. Do you know what I'm saying? But in South Africa, you've got a small amount of people who come to do comedy. So in a way, I think South African comedians work harder than anybody else because we first of all, we got limited areas to work in. And then second of all, we have a lot of people are comedy fans, so they come back. So you have to be on your feet. You have to create. You have to do things,
Yeah.
So, and I disliked it. I had serious words with this very famous comic now. I won't tell you his name. He was a young black comic. He did the same 15 minutes every time I saw him. And no, man, I said to him, dude, you are so talented, but you are so damn lazy. Pull your finger out your arse. You'll get more work. And luckily he did. And he's made it. So because you can get lax, if it comes too easy, you think, piece of cake. But if you say the same thing at the same time in the same set in your set 10 times, after that, I was going to say, okay, enough now,
Yeah. True.
But like in America, the States, even Australia, you can just tour forever there. It's flipping ridiculous.
What's your material like when you tour? I mean, like, how do you do a bit of research on the places when you go there, or do you just because you are that funny, you can basically speak about
people. I listen to people, and realistically, unless you're talking about, hey, I live in Mitchell's Plain. Okay, the guy in New York's gonna go, what's Mitchell's Plain? But if you say, I live in Cape Town, in a place called Mitchell's Plain, the guy knows Cape Town. And then you'll say, but it's so tough in Mitchell's Plain, da, 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 da. Oh, that's funny because now you've already given him him or her, and I'm using the word him to be politically correct. It's like
Yeah.
drive me. You know, like what I did the other day, just to stop myself quick. I got on stage, and it was just out of the blue. I said, you know what? In South Africa now, or in the world now, in comedy, you have to be very, very careful that you don't offend people, or
Yeah.
you've got to include everybody. So the crowd went, yes, yes, yes. So I said, so there was this one-eyed black lesbian in a wheelchair. So that everybody had but then, you know, it was a vibe, and everybody had a good laugh about it. And I said, seriously, let's talk
Yeah.
about being South African. So when I go overseas, you don't pinpoint areas. You don't do this. My favorite opening line when I go overseas: "Hi, I'm from South Africa. Give me your wallets." Because they just think
Yeah.
that it's crime. But then you go and tell them the crime is not that bad, bro. It is bad, but seriously, you could. There's also other things in South Africa, you know, like yeah. So and then they love it. So that's how you do it when you go overseas. You just got to broaden your ideas. It's like,
Yeah, no, that's amazing, man. That's really, really amazing.
but
And
haven't
like
you
back,
been?
I've been to New York where I witnessed some comedy overseas, and I tried my luck actually there. I went to this one club. It was like the clubs that we have here. And the people were just doing comedy there, and I went to the owner and I asked him, and I told him, I'm like, hey man, I'm from South Africa. I'm here for the weekend, and I'm a comedian, and I was just wondering if I could get like 5 minutes on stage, please, you know. And he's like, oh, okay. So what you need to do is you need to go to the website, you need to fill out there, and then we get
That's
selected.
exactly.
And I was like, yeah, but I'm here now. Tomorrow I'm not gonna be here anymore, and I'm just from
I
Cape
don't
Town, and
care,
I'm,
bro.
you know, I just want 5 minutes or whatever. He's like, okay, when you come again, what you need to do is go to the website. I was like, ah, but I
Well,
enjoyed the
actually,
show.
that was that vibe I did in Hong Kong. I was working somewhere else, and because somebody knew that the Jamie Gong there said to Jamie Gong, "But you don't. This is an opportunity for you. Don't let it go. You take it." And Jamie Gong said, "Yes, okay, I'll let him do it." So, and that created work for us, you know. So, but you're right. If you go to the UK now, I went to go see my kids 2 years ago, and I went to a comedy club, and that actually happened to me. I said to the guy, "Listen, I'm in town for a couple of nights. Can I get on?" The guy said exactly that. You know, well, there's a waiting list. Da da da, da da da. And then, but funny, what happened that night? I was in the audience because I wanted to watch the show.
Yes.
And I think there must be a comedy god, because the comedian picked on me. I was sitting there. I was not looking for it, but the comedian gave me, "So where are you from?" I said, "I'm from South Africa, actually." Then he started dissing me. But as he dissed me, I whacked him. And I didn't do it on purpose, but he would say something, and I boom. And then boom. And then he actually stopped his show. He said, "Listen, pal, if you're such a smart ass, why don't you get up on stage?" And I did. And then the guy came to me afterwards. He said, "That's unfair. You're a professional." I said, "I came to see the show, dude." So that did happen, you know. Oh, Betty, my cousin, Graham. Yeah, so, you know, you must concentrate on being South African. We're lucky, even with all the crap we've got here. What I do, but I don't do politics. I just, you know, I just don't do politics. There's too much corruption. But if you give me 500 Rand, I will. That's joking. So never mind. So I don't do politics. So a lot of people say to me, "Oh, you must get a lot of material from our politicians." And I said, unless they're in a haberdashery, no, because I don't do politics. It just does. I haven't got interest. I'd rather talk about kids bouncing around at school and having a jaw and the, you know, and the dog cucking on the lawn and things like that. That's what comedy's about, isn't it? Will you do comedy forever? You think? So will I do comedy forever, or are you thinking of retiring? Well, Alvinia, thank you very much for that. But apparently, unless I'm supernatural, I'm going to die one day. So, but I'll try to do comedy until that time. And thank you so much. Should I retire? Nah. I thought about it. But you know what? Lunga, we can't, because even if you like this, you know, this last year, you probably haven't been on a stage. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But yet you're walking in a supermarket and somebody says something and you go da da da. So you're
Yes.
always working because you hear something funny and you immediately tsh, tsh, tsh.
Yep.
And they go,
Yep.
that's funny. You should be on the stage. Well, funny enough, ask COVID. Otherwise, I would have been on stage.
No,
You know
honestly,
when
you can
COVID
ask.
first started?
Yeah.
First started. I got on stage. I was working in Belleville somewhere. And this guy says to me, have you got any jokes about COVID? I said, no, at the moment, I've got 19. He said to me, what are they? I said, no, you plonker, it's COVID-19.
He didn't get it.
The other oaks got it, but he was like, duh, I want to hear them.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, so
awesome.
we never actually stop. We never stop
Yeah.
being comedians. You
No.
can't.
I mean, like it's not like we speak. It's not like a job, where there's a timeline. You once you reach a certain age, you can't use a machine anymore, whatever. Comedy is life. As you experience, say the way you're experiencing things. You've got something to talk about. At when you started out the stuff that you spoke about. Then you started when you became a father. You had different kind of material.
Absolutely.
When you started touring, moving around, you had different kind of material. Now that you have the pandemic, you have different kind of material. When we get out of this, and every other adventure you go on to is always going to be material. So I don't think
I want to tell you something. With this pandemic, I'm one step ahead now. I've got COVID-20 already. You see, so and people say, I've had actually asked, people said to me, how can you joke about COVID when people have died? I said, well, I joke about cigarettes and people die from cigarettes. I joke about alcohol and people die from alcohol. So COVID is terrible. Unfortunately, it's terrible. Yeah. And I'm sorry if you've lost anybody or whatever, but should I go into a corner and cry and say, no, I'm not going to do anything? You have to address it.
Yeah, I mean, we need to change. We need to change how that word affects us. I know. Sorry, and I've also lost. So I don't want to sound insensitive here because I also lost like family members and whatever. But I don't want to think of COVID as like, 2020, the worst year. I want to think of it. I try to highlight the positivity. That how I pushed into creativity. I grew my hair even in the COVID.
I saw that day. I thought it was you trying to save money there or what?
No.
The old days, Mel Miller would say something to you. It looks like you arrived here on a motorbike without a helmet.
Yeah,
but that's fun. You got to laugh at that stuff, man.
Right? Yes. Speaking of the old school guys, we've got 10 minutes left. Barry, please. Yeah, I know time flies, man.
It does.
But please share with us some stories of like some stars and legends that you met on your way, when they were probably still in either they were still famous, they were also on their journey, for example, something like, let's say you did a show with Lucky Dube once upon a time, on your journey. Are there any stars?
Yes, I've got a lot of stuff. I won some competitions in the UK, okay? And one of the competitions was to go to this big summer season in Jersey, on the islands of Jersey, just off the UK. And I won this right to be in this huge show for 17 weeks. And the show was split in two. There was myself as the compere, and then there was a juggler and a singer, and then I would do 20 minutes, and that was the first half of the show. And then the big stars would come on, the big British stars and American stars and that. And Billy Connolly was there, and he came into my change room and said to me in a very broad Scots accent, "You are very funny, young man, but you need to stop telling jokes. You need to talk about life." So Billy Connolly doesn't know this, but he actually helped me because that's what I did. I thought, point taken. I'm going to do that. So yeah, I've worked with some huge guys, but I've worked with some pooples as well who thought they were much better than they were. Some of them are idiots. But the funniest comic in South Africa, I'm telling you, people can shoot me down now. Mel Miller. He's as sharp as they come, but he's a bully now. No disrespect, I love him to pieces. But Mel Miller is still as sharp as a pin. So yeah,
Yeah.
so some good acts and some great young guys as well. You know, we must never forget about the young acts coming through. Here's the funniest thing. I know we're running out of time. You've been a pro how many years?
I've only been doing it for 8 years now. This is my
Only
ninth year.
8 years. Now think about this. There's lighties coming through the ranks now who's saying, "Who the hell is this act?" That's what's happening. So
True.
yeah, so you've got to keep on it, pal, and make a plan. So you've
Yeah.
got to create this thing. So in a couple of years' time, somebody's going to be saying, "You'll never guess who I've got on my show, bro." You know,
Yeah.
so it's up to us. So we need to tell the youngsters out there, it doesn't come for free and it doesn't come cheap. It comes with hard graft and lots of failures. Hey,
Yes.
just
Yes.
it's tough. Eh? But there's been some
Uh,
great guys in South Africa. Great. I mean, my all-time favorite comedian in the whole world. Period is Richard Pryor.
oh,
Even though he was so like that, he was brilliant for me, and he was just because he was brave enough to come out. It was very difficult then those days to be a black
yes.
comedian in America. Do you remember those days? And he did it, and he talked about blackness, and he was
Yeah.
hysterical. Still, I listen to his stuff still today, and he's hysterical. He's
True.
hysterical. Yeah. So
I've watched his show on Netflix. He has a show on Netflix. I think it's live in Richard Pryor live in concert. I don't know what
yes,
I can't
that's
remember
about
what
1980 something, bro.
a very brilliant show.
Oh,
I'm
it was
like,
funny.
this man is using techniques that I'm learning today. He's
Yes.
using techniques back then or it, and I'm like, wow, like honestly, I love it. Who is your favorite? Who if you had like a top five or a top three, or whatever, it doesn't
Richard
matter
Pryor.
locally, nationally.
Yeah, Richard Pryor, Billy Connolly, Mel Miller, in that
Yeah.
order. I really
Wow.
believe Mel Miller's great. Is a great comic, you know. There's a
Yeah.
youngster, I would like to say you, but the people think that we sort of chommy. There's a youngster from Zimbabwe. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
heard about him, Long John.
Yes, yes, yes.
He is very funny. And you know what I
Mm.
like about Long John? He's a grafter.
Yeah.
He's always trying to do things, and his humor is so funny.
Yeah.
He talks about this guy. He says, "Have you ever thought about these guys who buy penis enlargement cream? Okay, you
Yeah.
should actually look at their hand." He said he saw this guy with a massive hand. He thought, okay, he's using that stuff, bro.
Yeah.
Did you get it? That is so funny. He's so clever,
Yeah.
this kid, Long John. Yeah. Look, but I hope we can get back up again, and I hope all the youngsters are out there. And if I can just tell you, I know we got to go. If there's any young comics out there that need to know anything, phone me, bro. I'm available. I'll help anybody at any time. You know, it's a
Yes.
win. You must. And those oaks in turn, when they comics themselves, they must help people. Must make a
Yes.
plan and have a jaw, man. It's important.
Yes, that's the one beautiful thing I learned about you immediately, that you are so like the minute I met you, before I actually met you, I always thought like, okay, this man is a legend. You're probably gonna have like a certain level of, how you communicate and how you interact with us and everyone. And I didn't know how to approach or whatever. And you
I
pranked
remember
me
that.
very well. You pranked me very, very well.
Don't look in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one. Yeah, it was
Because
a
I
crazy
think that,
thing.
they said to you, "What? Go to Barry, but do not look at him in his eyes." And you were going like,
Yes.
"Hi, Mr. Hilton," saying, "Dude, what's the matter with you?" Do you remember
And
that?
then, yes, Gino came to me. I didn't actually want to spoil it because I thought like, okay, he's still gonna prank some guys. But Gino came to me and he's like, listen, we're gonna meet Barry Hilton now. And the thing is, don't look him in his eyes because he's got like some kind of a thing. He doesn't like it if you look directly in the eye. And I'm thinking to myself, but how does he do comedy when everyone's looking at him? So like, nah, just find a technique, whatever, to look above the crowd or whatever, but don't look him in the eye. And I was like, but now he's an icon, and I couldn't wait to tell him, oh, you are like, I appreciate you so much, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm like, how am I going to
I
do all
remember
of
that
that?
night.
Can't look him in the eye. And then we
I
talk.
remember that night. It was
looking
funny. Eh?
down. Yes, and then you're looking down and you're talking. I'm just like, and I couldn't help it, and I glanced at your eyes and like, told him, and you look at tell him, don't look in my
But it was a prank. You know what I'm saying? But
eyes.
when you heard it,
Like,
it was
I
funny.
mean, and
There's a
we
good
had a
comic.
good laugh. We had a
Gino's a
really
good
good
comic too. Eh?
Yes. And so bringing back to what I was trying to say is that we had such a good laugh, and after all of that false tension,
Yes.
like, I mean, you opened your house to me, we spent some time, you took us out for breakfast the next morning, we were speaking about comedy, you shared so much about who you are and what you enjoy. So, and that is such like an honorable thing about you, and
Well,
that's
thank
all
you. I appreciate that.
you said, like when you actually people when he's telling you to, you can call him, you can ask him for his advice. He's not trying to be a nice guy. He's being genuine. He really means it when he says this thing. And don't think, oh, no, it's Barry Hilton, I don't want to waste his time. He's opening his heart to you guys. He's done it to me, and he met me the same day, and he's opened his heart to me. So like this is a beautiful man, and thank you so much for being on the
I'm
show,
honored,
man.
man. I'm honored. Thank you. Peace.
Cool, man.
Stay safe.
Listen, Barry, in this last 4 minutes, is there anything that I know you've actually been giving a lot of insight for the young guys
Yes.
up and coming, for to remember things, or some notes to take home with them. Is there anything that you would tell the younger Barry Hilton, the one who didn't know what the journey would look like, is there anything that you would give him advice? If you could go back in time now and you could tell him, yo, listen
Yeah.
up.
I would say to him, but you're here because the people want to see you. You are good enough. Make it better. But I've always suffered with the thing, are they really here? Make it better. Go out there. Think about this, man. We have got a job. We don't even work. We do work on stage, but we don't have to slog at things. So you say to the guy, take your chances, make it happen, grab any opportunity that you can, and be cool.
Yeah.
I think that's important, a younger Barry Hilton, and stop having so many children, for God's sake. You got 6.
Oh, Barry
Wear a
Hilton.
condom, for God's sakes.
They're gonna take care of you one day.
I hope so. It'll be cool.
Barry
Cool,
Hilton,
man.
it's been a joy. It's been a pleasure. I mean, you shared with, like I said, like I got an opportunity to get to know you on a personal level, but tonight I got to know more about the person you are, and just how your journey was, and how you actually had to start, and that was really funny how to actually pretend to be from England, and then you
Liverpool.
had to come and get like they tell you, oh, you have such a good South African accent. That was really
Yeah,
cool.
that's a true story, though. Yeah.
The journey.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
wow. Thank you so much
I
for
am truly
sharing.
honored that you got me on as a thing. I really am. It's very cool. It's nice to know.
That was a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a brilliant evening. Send my blessings to your family and my cousin.
100%. My cousin.
Good night, Barry.
Bye-bye.
Cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into episode 2 of The Price of Fame. If there's famous people that you admire and you would like to see them on the show, you'd like to hear about their stories, please hit me up on my Facebook page. That is Lunga Tshuka, the Energizer Funny. Or you can, hit me up on that page. Or you can hit me up on my Instagram page. Instagram and Twitter is also at Lunga Tshuka. Please let me know what you like about the show. If there's anything that you feel like could be improved or whatever, or anyone that you'd like to see on the show, holler at your boy. Also, please go to my YouTube page and like and subscribe. Thank you very much. That was it from me and Barry Hilton, The Price of Fame, Part 2. And I'm out.